Okay, so let me start with a story. Let me tell you a story. About a year ago, I took a vacation with my family. At the time, my daughter was 6, almost 7. So now she's 7, almost 8, about a year ago. We took a vacation and we took a trip, and you know how it is sometimes on vacations. Kids find friends immediately because they're out of their environment. Well, she found another little girl who was just the sweetest little girl, who was 1 year older than her, and they became fast friends. And as they became very close, you know how close you can become, within a few hours, she noticed that this other little girl, because she was a year older than her, she noticed this other little girl was missing both of her front teeth. And wouldn't you know it, after talking with this girl, she came to me and she said, "Hey, Dad, I think my front tooth is loose." And let me see if the clicker is working. I hope it's working. There we go. That's her. Oh, this is not great lighting. I don't know how well you can see this, but that's her. She's sitting there. We're eating vegan pizza. You don't have to be concerned, all the vegans. We're eating vegan pizza. And later on in the day, from that picture where nothing is going on to later in the evening, like in one day, it went from not being loose to, I think this is, I'm going to wiggle this thing out. And she pulled that tooth out. And when this happened, it just demonstrated for me something so powerful, something that we all are desiring, and that is love and belonging and acceptance, right? She wanted to be accepted by this other little girl. And this other little girl had both of her teeth out, and she thought, you know what? Maybe she'll like me more if I pull my tooth out. Maybe she'll like me a little bit more. Fortunately, she left the other one in and let it come out on its own. My question for you is, do your friendships and the desire for acceptance set you at odds with God? There's nothing wrong with a desire to be accepted and want to be loved by your friends. But we are accountable to God first. Do you agree with that? You are accountable to Jesus first. Do you think your decisions show that you care more about your friends or about God? We don't want to admit it, but oftentimes we make decisions based on what other people think rather than what God thinks. We don't want to admit it, but that tends to be the case. Have your friends ever pressured you to do something that you didn't want to do? Paul says 3 times, he says something very cool. In Philippians chapter 1, Romans chapter 1, and in Titus chapter 1, he says, Paul, I am a servant of Jesus. Some translations say, I am a slave of Jesus. I am a slave of Jesus. Would you consider yourself to be a slave to Jesus? Paul considered himself first and foremost a servant to Jesus. Can you say with all honesty, I care more about what God thinks than what my friends think? I care more about what Jesus thinks than what my boss tells me. Are you a servant of Jesus, or are you a servant of other people's expectations? Peer pressure. We pretend that we don't care what other people think, but we know that we do. Deep down inside of our hearts, we know that we care the way that people feel about us. And again, there's nothing wrong with that, but if it's at odds with what God wants from us, we have to put Jesus first. There's a hairstyle that's very much in right now for the guys. It's the messy, I don't care what my hair looks like look, right? It's the, okay, but here's the problem with it. Here's the problem with that look. It takes about 30 minutes of like moving and tousling and moving to make it look like you didn't try it, right? It's like I'm looking in the mirror and like, no, that looks like I did it on purpose. Let me keep going. Okay, that looks like I just rolled out of bed, right? It's the messy look. We pretend we don't care what other people think about us, but we know we do. When I was in high school, I'm a little nervous to share this, but I'll share it. When I was in high school, I wore pants that were way too big for me, like most of the young men that were my age. They were so big, you had to fold them over this way, and fold them over this way, and you put a big belt, and then you wear a t-shirt that looks like a dress, and it's hanging down to your knees, because I wanted to fit in. I felt like I was an individual. I felt like even though every single one of my friends had that same style, we were all individuals together because we care what people think about us. Do you care what God thinks more than your friends? Some of us have had the desire for things like tattoos or lip piercings or tongue piercings or, these things because we want to be different. Is your desire to be different at odds with God's desires for you? We should do what is right because it is right and leave the consequences to God. God has a specific outline for what he wants your life to look like. And if that puts you at odds with the rest of the world, you leave the consequences to him. Go with me to the book of Daniel. I want to talk to you about Daniel because I love that Daniel was faithful to God regardless of the consequences. He was a teenager and he was faithful. He was an old man in his 80s and he was faithful. All throughout his life, Daniel was faithful to God. Go with me to Daniel chapter 1. Daniel chapter 1. And watch how this starts out because it's very cool. I love the way this book starts. In Daniel chapter 1, if you have your Bible, open it up. Daniel chapter 1, if you're there, say I'm there. Okay. Daniel chapter 1, watch this. In the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem and besieged it. Watch this verse. And the Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand with some of the articles of the house of God, which he carried into the land of Shinar to the house of his God. He brought those articles into the treasure house of his God. Then the king instructed Ashpenaz, the master of the eunuchs, to bring some of the children of Israel and some of the king's descendants and some of the nobles, young men in whom there was no blemish, good-looking, gifted in all wisdom, possessing knowledge and quick to understand, who had ability to serve in the king's palace, and whom they might teach the language and literature of the Babylonians, or the Chaldeans. The king appointed them for a daily provision of the king's delicacies, and the wine which he drank, and the 3 years of training for them, so that at the end of that they may serve before him to the king. This story starts in this way. Well, first let me ask you this question. Who's writing this book? Who? Daniel. Okay. And this book, this story starts with people coming to Daniel's house, his home in Judah, in Jerusalem, and they're saying, we are going to take you from your home to our home, and you're going to eat our foods, and you're going to wear our clothes, and we're going to change your name. He was most likely castrated. You will never have a wife. You will never have kids. Your entire life will be service. You're going to learn our language, eat our food, learn our culture, learn our way of education, go to our schools, Babylon University. You're going to serve us. They probably walked for months to get there. And yet, in verse 2, Daniel says something very fascinating. Let me just read it to you again. And the Lord gave Jehoiakim into Nebuchadnezzar's hand. Anybody else find that fascinating? You're like, what's so cool? Okay, Daniel says, this is not about Babylon versus Jerusalem, Babylon versus the Jews. He says, because in the ancient days, if one country was conquered by another, their God was weak, right? He couldn't protect you, right? So your God is so weak that the Babylonians, they could come in and just take your people and make you slaves if they want to. Daniel says, that's not what this is about. This is actually not about you. This is between us and our God. We've turned our backs on God, and God is using you to punish us, but God is actually still in charge of us, not you. Right? You're taking us where you want us to go, but this has nothing to do with you. You are an instrument in God's hands. That's the way that Daniel sees this. Again, I'm not a captive to Nebuchadnezzar. I'm a captive to God. I'm God's servant first and foremost. That's what they would have believed, most people. Now, I'm going to show you a quote or a statement here, and I want you to tell me if you think this is true or false. If you think that's true, raise your hand. Okay, if you think that's false, raise your hand. The way that Daniel saw this, in spite of all of his trauma, do you think he was traumatized? He was captive. He was probably chained and walked for months while probably naked as a slave, probably saw his parents murdered. And again, he says, God has not abandoned us. I retain my faith in God when hard things come. In the culture in which we live, we feel uncomfortable and embarrassed sometimes to be a Christian. Is that true, yes or no? Nobody wants to say yes. We feel uncomfortable, and sometimes we feel like we have to hide our Christianity. Daniel actually holds his head high, and he says, I'm not embarrassed to serve the God of the universe. I know that you feel like you're in control of this situation, but in reality, I serve a king that's stronger than you. As a Christian, as a Seventh-day Adventist, hold your head high. You're a daughter of the king. You're a son of the king. God loves you, and he has died for you. You can hold your head high. Not in superiority, not like I'm better than you, but you're priceless. Do not believe when bad things happen that God has abandoned you. I'll say it again. Seventh-day Adventists are not better than other people. We're not better than other Christians. But God has certainly given us blessings that we should be distributing to the world. See, that's one of the two traps. See, Satan tries to push you into one of these two traps. Trap number one, I'm all that in a bag of potato chips. I am better than other people. And the other trap, I am worthless, the imposter syndrome. I'm basically human garbage. The reality is you're neither. You're broken, flawed, you're sinful. You desperately need Jesus, but you are so priceless and valuable in the eyes of God. You are neither amazing nor trash. You are amazing because of God and his love for you. So Daniel sees this in this way. This is not between us and you, this is between us and our God. Was anybody curious about the title of the sermon? Yes. Everybody curious? This is not about us and our God. This is between us and you. This is between us and our God. And God does something amazing here. God actually is willing to look like he lost in order to sneak Daniel in as a Trojan horse. Okay, you guys are familiar with the Trojan horse? Anybody familiar with history? I'll just go through it really quickly. Okay, the Greeks surrender, in quotes, surrender to another city. And they build a statue of a big horse, and they put their soldiers inside of it. And they roll it to the city, and they say, hey guys, we give up, you guys win, and they leave. And then, in celebration, this city says, yes, we won. They're all celebrating. They bring in the statue with all the soldiers inside of it. They bring it in, they go to sleep. Overnight, the soldiers jump out, and they defeat the city. Okay? That's the Trojan horse. God uses Daniel as a Trojan horse, as he sneaks him into Babylon. See, Satan thinks he won. Satan thinks he won. Yes or no? Yeah, okay. I'm capturing all of God's people. I'm going to wipe out the way that God is blessing the world through Abraham's descendants, right? I'm going to kill all of the Jews, and some of them are getting taken captive. God can't use them anymore. And God's like, you think so? I'm actually sneaking Daniel in because at the end of his book, Nebuchadnezzar becomes saved. Sometimes you'll hear athletes say things like this. I'm built different. Have you heard that before? Right? Like, oh, I'm so good, like I'm so strong, I'm just different than everybody else. I'm not going to compare God to the arrogance of that, but God is built different in that he's willing to look like he lost something in order to actually save someone for eternity. Because from the perspective of everybody that would have looked at this situation, Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they are pawns. They're basically gone. I mean, nobody cares about them. They're slaves in a palace, in a foreign land. Most of the Jews have been killed. Nebuchadnezzar won. Satan won. And God says that's not true. I can use these 4 young men. Where were the others? Were there other people who were captured? Okay, so why do we only hear about these 4? Because these were the 4 that stood up for God. This is how Daniel interprets his story. I have a question for you. How do you interpret your story? When bad things happen to you, do you actually walk toward God and say, God, I don't know how you're going to use this, but I'm staying with you? Or do you walk away and say, God, you've abandoned me? How do you interpret the struggles in your life? The challenges, the difficulties, the moments where it feels like God has abandoned you. Do you interpret it as, God, I know that you're going to use this to bless somebody else, and Satan is working here because you don't cause suffering? How do you interpret the difficult moments? Daniel was not complaining. Okay, look with me here. Daniel chapter 1, verse 8. Look with me here. Daniel chapter 1, verse 8. Daniel, what's the word? Purposed. Come on, you got to wake up. Daniel what? He purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the portion of the king's delicacies, nor with the wine which he drank. He requested of the chief of eunuchs that he might not defile himself. He was determined. I will not eat unclean meats. I will not put alcohol in my body, and I will not worship your gods. Once again, Jesus, make me a slave to you, not a slave to my diet or the way that other people want me to live. Now, this is not a sermon about health, but I'm just going to give you, like as an analogy, cute little story. One of the things that I love to do with my daughter and my son's 3, my daughter's 7, almost 8, every time we're in the grocery store, we walk through the grocery store, I try to do this on purpose, okay? I walk them through the alcohol aisle, and they know. You ask my daughter, she knows. Babe, what is all this stuff here? Wine and alcohol, what is all this stuff? Dad, that's poison. That's poison. I've just indoctrinated her. I hope that's okay. I'm just telling her over and over again. People waste their whole lives and tons of money, just absurd amounts of money. People waste their entire lives on this stuff. And then I walk her through the grape juice aisle. Okay, what is this? This is grape juice. This is healthy. This is good stuff, okay? This is poison. This is grape juice. I'm just because a 7-year-old can purpose in her heart, I will never drink alcohol. Daniel purposed in his heart, I will not drink the things that you want me to drink. A 7-year-old can live for God. Daniel might have been 14, 16. He was a teenager for God. You can be 80 and live for God. Regardless of how old you are, you can live for Jesus first and for others second. You do not have to wait until you become, in your 40s or 50s. A young person can live for God. A teenager can live for God. When I was younger, people would come to me, friends would come to me, and they'd say, hey, do you want to smoke weed? I'd say, no, I'm not about that. Well, what do you mean? I thought we were friends. I thought you were my boy. We can only be friends if you can respect my no. We can only be friends if you can respect that I'm not about that. Hey, we're going to party over the weekend. We're going to go drink some alcohol and we're going to have some fun. No thanks. Because I would rather live for God and be cool to Jesus than defile my body. Here's what my favorite author, here's what she says. Had Daniel desired, he might have found a plausible excuse for departing from godly habits. He might have argued that there was no other course for him to pursue than to eat the king's food and to drink his wine. And obviously, who did this? Who convinced themselves? Everybody else. All of the other Jews, except for Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, these are the only ones that at least that we know of, that stood up and said, no way. I will live for Jesus first, and I don't care what you have to say about it. She continues, should he follow God's teaching, he would probably offend the king and probably lose his life. But should he disregard God's command, he would retain the favor of the king and secure worldly advantages. I want to ask you again, who has your loyalty? Is it your boss? I need you to work on Sabbath. Is it your friends? Is it your teachers? Is it your family members? Does Jesus have your number one? Let me see what I got. I love this section. Daniel did not, what's the word? Hesitate. Come on, say it a little louder. Daniel did not? Hesitate. Because the approval of God was dearer to him than the favor of the most powerful earthly king, dearer than life itself. So Jesus would later say, I love how relational this is, by the way. Daniel is not earning God's love and acceptance. He knows that he already has God's love and acceptance. He's working from God's acceptance to be better, not to earn it. Okay, so Jesus would later say, the religious leaders, they come to him and they ask, Jesus, what's the most important commandment? And what does he say? You know. What's he say? To love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul. And what's the second? To love your neighbor as yourself, okay? So I want you to imagine this, okay? My daughter comes in, she wakes up 7 a.m., my son comes in, and they come in, okay, all right, let's just go over the rules for the day. Okay, we do this every day, right? Okay. Don't kick your brother. Okay, don't kick your brother. Don't throw food, okay? Don't stand up on the table, okay? Don't jump on the beds. Love your father. Since when is love a rule? Right? This is what Jesus is saying later, and this is what Daniel experiences. If I fall in love with God, I will have no problem living for God. I'm not earning God's love. I already have God's love and acceptance. God's approval to me, God's approval of me, is already there because in Jesus you are accepted in the beloved. Ephesians chapter 1, verse 6. So remember this, the goal of health is love. Do you love Jesus that you want to take care of your body? Daniel knows that he's better able to take care of himself. One of the goals for the Pennsylvania conference over this next year or few years is health, right? I'm going to tap into that for just a minute. Do you love Jesus that you know you're going to serve him at your highest capacity? Stop doom scrolling on Facebook and go to bed. Stop doom scrolling on TikTok. Spend less time on your phone and go to bed. By the way, why is it that we think of splurging and then we start to think of the bad thing instead of the healthy thing, right? Like, oh, I had such a hard week. I'm going to eat a piece of cake, I'm going to stay up late, and I'm going to watch a movie. That's splurging. Why don't we think about it the opposite and we say, you know what, I had such a rough week. I'm going to eat a mango. I'm going to go to bed early. I'm going to spend time with Jesus in the morning. That's splurging, right? Like, oh, I can't wait to spend time with Jesus in the morning. No, why? Sometimes people will come to me like, you know what, Monday morning, I'm dragging. I need my coffee. I need my caffeine. Like, I need this artificial thing to prop me up, to help me move forward. I'm just like, listen, I wake up, I'm ready to go. 6 a.m., 6:30 a.m., 7 a.m., I am ready. When is love a rule? When you fall in love with Jesus, taking care of your body becomes part of it. Not to earn, but because you already have God's acceptance. The goal of health is love. Okay, it's almost borderline romantic, isn't it? Daniel understood, I love God, so I want him to be proud of me, and I want to make good choices. Okay, if my four volunteers, if you could just come up here and sit up here, if you can just come up on the front row. I want to read to you a few verses. All four of you, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, they are. Okay. If you could just come up here and sit up here. Daniel chapter 2, verse 47. What do I have? 47. Okay. Daniel chapter 2, verse 47. Watch this. You may have to turn a page or two. Okay, we're going to start in verse 47. So the king answered Daniel and said, truly your God is the God of gods, the Lord of kings, and is a revealer of secrets. This comes after Daniel interprets the dream. Since you could reveal this secret. Then the king promoted Daniel and gave him many great gifts, and he made him ruler over the whole province of Babylon and chief administrator over all the wise men of Babylon. And Daniel, what's the next word? Requested. Anybody else? Okay, yeah, okay. Daniel requested of the king. Anybody else got a different word than requested? Petitioned. Are you guys with me? Okay, Daniel requested or petitioned the king, and he set Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego over the affairs of the province of Babylon, but Daniel sat in the gate of the king. Okay, all right, can you guys stand up? Can you guys just come and stand up here? You just stand up right here and face our lovely congregation. All right, so here we have our stand-ins. All four of these are teenagers. Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are all teenagers, right? I want you to envision in your mind what this is like, okay? The president calls... We'll say Jalen, calls Jalen up and says, Jalen, you're 14, right? 14. I know you're 14, but you're going to be the head of the Department of Education for the United States right now. And then the music starts playing. It's like, dun, 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 right? And then she's like, I don't know how I got here. I just want to thank my mom and my dad. And like, God bless America. And like, people are coming and they're like taking selfies with her. Like, and she's got security, like with the glasses, the sunglasses, and like, excuse me, Jalen's coming here. Jalen's coming through. Could you imagine what that would be like? And then Jalen asks, look, I didn't get here without my friends. The only reason I'm here is because I have a godly community. These are my friends. Can you please appoint them? Okay, question. Would that be strange, yes or no? Okay, next question. How do you think the other leaders in the United States of America, how do you think they would feel about Jalen being promoted? They would be like, these punk teenagers, who do they, like, what? And especially these other three, because they'd be like, okay, Daniel interpreted the dream. Who are these guys? Why do they get to be promoted? God did not promote Daniel because he was smarter. He promoted him because he could use him and because he was connected to God. Daniel and his three friends cared more about what God thinks than about what everybody else thought. And they were willing to stand up for Jesus. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I would think a lot of people would have been upset, don't you think? There are only two kinds of people in this world. Maybe some of you have heard me say this before. There are two kinds of people. There are thermometers and there are thermostats. Tell me, what does a thermometer do? It measures the temperature. What does a thermostat do? It sets the temperature. In your relationships with your friends, be a thermostat. Set the temperature. I will not allow you to convince me to do things that I don't want to do. In your job, I will not allow you to influence me against God. I will set the temperature in my relationship. Because most people are thermometers. Most people, they just read, they kind of blend in, they melt into the atmosphere of it's your job or it's your church or it's your school. Most people are thermometers. Be a thermostat. Number one, Jesus first. And number two, I'm comfortable if it goes along with Jesus, accepting some of the things that you may say. Be a thermostat. Nobody wants to be the odd man out, but we know there are things that we shouldn't do. Let me tell you something, especially if you're young. I'm thinking like 30 and under. The world does not need another Taylor Swift. It doesn't need more Tom Brady's. It doesn't need more YouTubers. It's got tons of those. It does not need more celebrities. The world needs this. Oh, sorry. Next one. This is from my favorite author. She says, the greatest want of the world is what? And women, mankind, men and women who will not be bought or sold. Men who in their inmost souls are honest. Men who do not fear to call sin by its right name. Men and women whose conscience is as true to duty as the needle to the pole. Men who will stand for right though the heavens will fall. The greatest want of the world, people who are servants of Jesus. Set the temperature in your friendships. Set the temperature in your church. See, this is why you have to wrestle with Jesus. This is why. Okay, I'm almost done. I need you to focus. This is important. Satan could see Nebuchadnezzar over here sleeping and struggling and having dreams and feeling uncomfortable. Satan could see the angels working on Nebuchadnezzar's heart, convicting him. God is real. There is a real God. You are not God. You are just a person. Satan could see that. Could Daniel see that? No. Yes or no? No. Daniel couldn't see. So Satan comes to try to influence Daniel because if he can do that, he can prevent Daniel becoming a witness. Satan can see in a few weeks or months, Daniel's going to have an opportunity, but if I can get him to compromise now, he will not be a witness for Nebuchadnezzar and Nebuchadnezzar won't be saved. Satan can see the future in a way, right? He can see what's going on behind closed doors, the dreams and the inability to sleep, and he's struggling and he's wrestling with God. And God, are you real? He's having these dreams. And Satan knows, if I can get Daniel to compromise, I can set this whole thing on fire. You have to wrestle with Jesus. I do not want to sin. I don't want to compromise. Jesus, you have to be the number one in my life. Please help me. I want you to be number one. You've got to wrestle with Jesus. Spend time with him in prayer because Satan was afraid. No one can stop what God is doing, but he can go and he can mess with Daniel. From a young age, Daniel knew that Jesus was number one. I'm going to finish with this verse, Galatians chapter 1. Galatians chapter 1, do I now seek the favor of people or of God? Do I seek to please men? If I still pleased men, I would not be a servant of Christ. I want to challenge you, whatever your situation is, whatever your setting, it would just take one on fire, totally sold out person to revive the entire culture of this church. One on fire, sold out person to change the culture at your job, change the culture at your school. One person sold out to Jesus. Jesus, you're the only thing that matters to me. You would set everybody else around you on fire. One person sold out. I don't know about you, but I want to live for Jesus. I want to die for Jesus. I want to speak for Jesus. I want to think for Jesus. I want to eat for Jesus. I want to spend my money for Jesus. I want to treat my friends right for Jesus. I want Jesus to be the number one thing in my life. What about you? I want Jesus to be the number one thing. If you want to live for God, you can't live for the world. As we get closer and closer to the end times, these are the two things that are going to come in opposition. There will come a point where you will have to say, I would be willing to literally die, or I'm going to compromise and have the ability to eat. I'm going to live for Jesus, or I'm going to live for others. The pressure is going to be real. Will you live for Jesus? The preparation starts now. We know Jesus is coming soon. We can see the signs. The world's a mess. If you don't see that the world's a mess, you're either not looking, which I don't blame you, because it's bad news. I mean, everything is bad news. But the world is a mess. The world needs more people who will live sold out for Jesus. If that's you, say amen.